Hello?
Hello?
Hello, Dr. MacCracken?
Hello there. Yeah, Mike is fine.
Hi, Mike. I don't know.
Whatever you want to do for your students.
Yeah. Can you see me all right?
I can see you fine.
Okay.
Yeah, you look so dressed up, but I'm in Hawaii here, so.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have you on I can't see you, but.
Oh, okay. Here, just a second.
Oh, there you are.
Okay.
Well, first of all, I wanted to say thank you very much for taking your time out for the students here in Michigan and over there in Galilee, Israel.
Oh, well, you're welcome. Happy to do it.
So,
I mean, this is the world we're leaving to the young people, so they're going to have to help.
Yeah.
Help change it and fix it.
Yeah. Well, I'm Jeff Kozinski. I've been teaching for about 18 years here at Edwardsburg High School. It's in southwestern Michigan. I'm about an hour and a half away from Chicago, 20 minutes from Notre Dame. So, to give you a little idea where we're located.
I don't think I've been there.
Oh, okay. All right. So, basically, what's going on is I'm working on a video conference project through a facilitator called Global Nomads group, and they've linked my class with another class in Israel, in Galilee, and we have 4 different video conferences. And the first one was an introduction of an ice-breaking type video conference. The second one dealt with the impact of social media on our views, and started talking about a collaborative project that our class and their class could work together. These are 16 and 17-year-old students for both classes. I teach civics and economics to my students, and Mrs. Bashara in Israel, she teaches English to those students. Now this third video conference, which is going to be on Monday, we are talking about global citizenship, how to be a global citizen. We've done some research on some global leaders who made an impact. We researched the Civil Rights Movement, researched the apartheid and Nelson Mandela, and then also did some research on the Arab Spring, and talked about how individuals have their leadership qualities and what they've done to make an impact across the globe. Which leads us to our collaborative project for the kids. And one of the areas that we've discussed in length is the problem of the global climate change. So Mrs. Bashara and myself we're trying to challenge the students to come up with pledges, individual pledges that they can make that can have a positive impact on global climate change. And with all that being said, do you have any information about the current situation of, I know you have a lot, I read a lot of the material that you sent over. Can you give me a little bit of information to share with the kids on global climate change and maybe some ideas that might be useful for the kids with their individual pledges?
Well, I guess the first thing I'd say, and I think it sort of follows up on the global citizenship idea, is that the scientific community is a very international community. We have colleagues all over the world. Science is something that is an international activity. And so we get to go to a lot of different places and meet with people from a lot of different countries, and we all work together well. The world might seem very split apart in many ways, but when you go to these scientific conferences where we're all focused on a common idea of understanding the climate and what we can do, everybody works together. Mm-hmm. It could be people from 100 countries, and we all come together and have fun. We can talk about our differences, and sometimes people, and differences in the science, sometimes people from different groups will, they'll sort of have song fests with people from different continents doing things together. So science is a wonderful international bridge. I did a lot into the Soviet Union in the 1980s. I've been to China and other places, and all these places which seem very strange. It's a wonderful place to go. So
wow.
One thing is to understand that there are ways to bridge across to other people so that one all has a common interest and a common understanding, because dealing with climate change is going to be a global issue.
Right.
So it's lots of fun that way. It's very interesting. It's an occupation lots of people don't think about, that are an aspect of an occupation that people don't think about. And it isn't just for pure scientists. It can be for people who have all kinds of other skills. There are we cooperate on scientific programs. So if you want to do a field experiment to understand something in the ocean, if several countries bring their ships and other ones bring their airplanes, you have a whole group working together. And to coordinate those kinds of things, they set up international program offices. Mm-hmm. So it's people who have scientific knowledge, but they've got to be good at helping people work together.
Right.
And assisting that. So there's a lot of different fascinating occupations. I mean, my wife has been, she was a secretary. She was a very good secretary, administrative secretary. She's become doing that for an international office that coordinates the putting together of these IPCC assessments. And so she's sort of become friends with people in 100 and so other countries,
right,
and everything, and takes their input and comments on the scientific chapters, assembles it. When 9/11 occurred, these people were just like friends in different places and wrote, are people okay over there? They expressed their concern. And so you find these wonderful connections through science. So that's one thing. Another thing, since you're really not in the science area, that's really interesting, I guess my sense is one reason people in the U.S. and maybe people elsewhere haven't been taking enough actions is they don't quite know where they're going to go. What is the future going to be like? There are members of Congress who have asked in the past, well, my friend Joe owns a farm. If we switch over to solar and wind energy, how is my friend Joe going to plow the fields and grow the food we need? Or how is my friend Sam going to mow the lawn or something like that? And so there's sort of a fear of the future. When I was in college, we read 1984 and Animal Farm and a whole bunch of things that were very, portrayed the future in a very sort of fearful way. What we don't have today is really a lot of visions of what the future could be like. What would a world be like where it has changed? How would it be different? Sometimes people say, oh, well, I couldn't drive a car. Well, no, there's going to be vehicles to get around. You're going to be able to get around in different ways. It's going to be powered differently, probably be powered by electricity that comes from wind power or something. And so there are an awful lot of people who are just sort of afraid to make the change. They don't quite know where they're going. So some visioning of where you're going can be very important to help people feel more confident about looking ahead.
Right.
And what you hear about climate change all the time is, oh, the disaster that lies ahead. That's what the scientists sort of raise, but what the social scientists need to do, and the engineers and inventors and creators need to do, is say, oh no, this can be a much better world. We can do things in different ways, and we can find ways to do that. It used to be that the science fiction writers sort of did that, but they took such leaps that seemed absurd, to have a wristwatch size telephone or something. Now we have that, and it's a little bit, to some of them, I think they're running a little bit out of, reality is keeping up so far. It's hard to get ahead. Get ahead of reality, but some creative thinking about the future can be important. On what one can specifically do, it's going to take all of us doing a lot of different things to try and reduce emissions. There's a friend of mine who has a book on the web, and I don't remember the exact title, but it's by John and Mary Ellen Hart, Harte. But its acronym is EASY. E is for efficiency. We can do things that make the world much more efficient. And so it's everything from energy efficient light bulbs to appliances and better air conditioners and other kinds of things. Better refrigerators. The amount of energy refrigerators have used has come way, way down. The way you heat your house can when you could go to geothermal or other things, it just brings energy usage way down. So E is for efficiency. A is for automobiles and transportation. So you can go for cars that get much better mileage. People worry about going to these new cars. Some of them are more expensive, but there was a study a while ago where I guess Chrysler with its European counterpart had developed a van that they were using and testing down in Austin, Texas. And it was being charged by wind power at night from Texas, and then they were driving it around during the day and plugging it in various places. And it was the equivalence of having gasoline at 75 cents a gallon.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Now, that's before taxes, so add 25 or 50 cents or something like that. But it isn't that these new things have to be more expensive to operate. And electricity can be very efficient as a way of driving a car, and it's not that they can't accelerate. I mean, there's wonderful stories out there of a fellow going out to a drag race place, and people were sort of wondering how he was doing it, and he beat everybody, and he opened his trunk, and it was a bunch of lithium batteries from computers that he basically put together as a system.
Really?
So it took him a little time to recharge to get ready to do it, but he could out-accelerate all the other drag cars. So you can get plenty of acceleration, you can get performance. There is some problems with mileage, and so people, for going long distances, so people talk about hybrid cars, getting little turbines to sort of charge up the battery as you go. There was a wonderful example of a bus here in Washington where it had a little turbine engine which just sort of ran very efficiently and very clean and very quietly, and it would charge up the battery, and the bus ran on the battery. And you rode on a bus. Well, the bus didn't vibrate, and the bus didn't make any noise. You could actually hear what was going on in the city, and so you could drive around. And they were, in this example, they were driving us around the city of Washington. You could hear what was going on. You could hear people talking on the street. It wasn't like being on a noisy, so that's spewing out smoke and everything. So things can be done. It costs a little bit more up front, but then it saves you in terms of operations. So you have to do it up front and pay for it.
Right.
So there's a lot of things you do with for automobiles and transportation. The S in easy was for solar and renewables. And there's a lot that can be done with that. I put solar on my roof last March for electricity. I'm basically getting a 10% return on my investment, and it's a 10% tax-free savings I'm getting. That's a pretty good investment, especially for somebody retired who wants to do something to save 10% of your money every year.
Right.
Of your return. Some businesses want to do more, but sometimes then you have taxes and fees and other things. Okay, this is basically a clean 10% return. Plus, I'm doing good. I'm doing well. Plus, the company that came out to me to do it for me, it basically leases me the system for a particular fee or something. But it came out to have to make one repair because one of the electrical connections, some water got in it. And there were 4 people that came out, and I was wondering, why does it take 4 people to fix one electrical thing? Well, you needed 2, one up on the roof and one on the ground, because for safety reasons and other things. But they had 2 people because they were hiring 2 people for new jobs.
Right.
On the side of their truck, they were hiring installation teams. So they were hiring them for these good jobs. You had to have some knowledge of electronics, or you had to be able to climb up on roofs. You had to be able to do a bunch of things. And they said, oh, and by the way, we're not even advertising on major media for new customers. We have a 6-month backlog of customers. We're hiring installation teams as fast as we can. We're getting so much business by referrals of people who are so happy with how it's working. We've got a 6-month backlog. They actually pay a little bit, a few $100s for a referral or something, who buys the system. But and so without advertising, they're hiring and training people as fast as they can. The homeowner is making a good return. The business is clearly making a good return. They basically own the equipment and they lease it to you and provide sort of a 20-year guarantee of its performance. And so there's all kinds of things you can do with solar or with wind or with a whole bunch of other kinds of things, whether it's geothermal or something. And what's the problem with renewables is conceptual. Fossil fuels you can use anywhere. Every country can get a hold of some petroleum and burn it, and it has energy power. But if you want to use renewables, different ones work in different places. If you're in the tropics, you want to use, you probably will use hydropower because there's a lot of rain, and you might use biomass or sugar cane, the way the Brazilians are, or others, to try and get energy. If you're in the arid subtropics, solar is tremendous, and so is sometimes wind power. So it's different. So it's different in different places. If you come up to the U.S., we've been so wasteful. Efficiency is by far the best thing to do. You can cut your energy use a lot and still get the same services. And then you have renewables and other things. We may need nuclear for base power, and there's some other things. But you have a whole mix of things. The real challenge is going to be how China and India really accomplish their energy transition. They're big countries, and they will do it different ways in different places, and they're working on it. But there's a lot happening in that way. The Air Force, the Department of Defense has been pretty active in trying to make things happen. It turns out the Air Force base is out west. They need a lot of land around them to protect, because the planes are coming in and you don't want to have any danger of planes crashes and a whole bunch of other things. Well, it turns out if they put solar cells on that land, the Air Force base, one Air Force base started doing that, and they realized, well, why would I just put a little? I'll put a lot, and then I'll sell the power, and then that'll help pay for the base. So they started doing that, and it worked so well that now other Air Force bases are starting to do the same thing.
My sister was down at Lackland Air Force Base.
Open land for where planes go over, jet planes go over. They're so noisy, you're not going to really do it. Potential danger, and they want that safety margin. You use that for solar cells or something. So there are just a host of things that you can do. And then the final section of this EASY part is why, means you, what you can do as an individual to try and adjust your energy use and have less of a carbon footprint. And so in each of these sections of the book, they have a whole list of kinds of things, and the book they've posted on the web for free, so it's easy to get.
Okay, and it was John and
Mary Ellen Hart, H-A-R-T-E.
Okay.
And it's something about cooling the planet or something, but they've talked about a lot of things that everybody can do. They sort of prepared a big list in there.
Okay.
In their book. I mean, I got to review it, and the first thing they're from Berkeley, California, and the first thing they had was switch and eat tofu, which I didn't think was the best idea, but they do have a lot of other very practical suggestions.
Okay.
Would like. So you can't do all of them, but
right.
I want to do all of them. But there's a host of things that people, of steps people can take to try and make their life sort of less impactful on the planet. I guess one other thing to say about climate change, it's one of only a number of issues that are coming up about how we're going to sustain ourselves on this planet as we go from 7 billion people that we have now to 9 or 10 billion by the end of the century if we keep going. Now, if you go back to 1900, the technologies of 1900 would not have, which supported 1.5 billion people or 2 billion people or so, would not be sufficient to support the 6 or 7 billion we had in the 6 billion or 7 billion we had in the year 2000. And we had to have this confidence that we're going to be able to figure out new technologies and new approaches to work through, so we can do that. And we have to do that for the future as well. You can get pretty depressed if you think, oh, I'm going to try and support 10 billion people on the technologies I have now. That would be very hard to do. We're having trouble in at least some areas of the world getting food to people to support 7 billion because of droughts and things. So what's going to happen in the future? You have to have sort of a faith and an optimism that's going to happen, or you can get depressed and it can get pretty.
Right, because a lot of the information we get is like just doom and gloom. But the approach in talking with you is instead of being doom and gloom, we got to have entrepreneurs amongst us with ideas to improve things and to make things better.
No, that's exactly right. I mean, and that's what I've sort of been doing sort of as part of my retirement in some senses. I mean, it's pretty clear that if you cut CO2 emissions, that's important for the long term to limit warming. But what's been recognized over the past 5 to 10 years, especially, is that there are a number of short-lived gases in the atmosphere, or short-lived things. So one is methane, which comes out, which is leaking natural gas, but also what we call air pollution, tropospheric ozone kind of concentrations, and black carbon, the black soot that comes out from diesel trucks or that comes out from fires or other things. That these, if you can cut their emissions, their concentration is not sustained in the atmosphere, so their warming influence sort of goes away pretty quickly.
Oh, I see.
The United Nations Environment Program and World Meteorological Organization did a study that came out a year and a half ago that basically said if we have a reasonably aggressive, not all that aggressive, but reasonably aggressive effort around the world to cut those emissions, we can cut the warming that's projected between now and 2050 in half. Okay, and then beyond that, what you have to do is be cutting other kinds of things. And so it's things that all the countries of the world actually will want to do because they have many co-benefits. If you have black particles coming out from buses and from construction vehicles or from the cook stoves that people in developing countries use, that black carbon absorbs solar radiation, so it's heating the atmosphere more than would sort of normally get reflected back out to space. But it's also going down in your lungs and causing diseases and health problems, and it's affecting visibility and other things. So there are things that countries are doing, including China and other countries. I mean, you hear right now about China having tremendous air pollution problems.
Yes, yes.
And the people are very unsatisfied about that. They want to clean that up. That kind of thing is not only so bad for the environment, I mean, because you see it and it affects your health and everything, it's bad for the climate. And so they need to take some actions to deal with it. And they're trying. They're working on automobile exhaust standards that are at least as strict as ours have been. And they'll be working on even stricter ones in the future. They're starting to move some of their factories around. They're trying to change where coal is burned and other things. So there are lots of things that these, you know, the one cook stoves. There's a major initiative on clean cook stoves. It turns out women in some of these countries, they're sort of in this small enclosure where they use a cook stove. And so it puts out a lot of pollution, so you have a lot of health problems from it. It turns out it isn't very efficient in burning wood, so they're bringing in more and more wood, and that sort of deforests the land, so it's burning up carbon and putting it in the atmosphere. Longer and longer distances collected, they tend to be vulnerable to being attacked of various kinds. So it's a health problem, it's a safety problem, it's a deforestation problem, it's all of these. And if they can get efficient cook stoves, and they don't have time cooking, they can be out earning money and sort of become part of the.
Right.
Pushing on that very hard as one of the initiatives, and she and the United States have actually started pushing on these short-lived gases, partly because the scientists have been prodding them, because that's something you can do in the near term to make a difference. So there's lots of things that could be done. It's just our country needs to say, we're going to try and do it. And that sort of gets back to that question of sort of a fear or lack of knowledge and understanding about the future. You have to have the confidence to be willing to jump forward.
Right.
And that's hard for people. A lot of people want to stay attached to the past. This is a good old way of doing things. And are you willing to try and step out and be new and have confidence that you can do something?
Well, you know what, with all of this, to be able to tie it in, and kids being leaders and looking at being a global citizen, with our talk here and the notes I've taken, I'm going to be able to share our discussion with the students. I think this would be a great motivator for the kids. I'm going to be going for my civics class now into economics. So as we're sitting here talking, thinking about different projects I can have my students do as far as entrepreneurship goes, and developing on this idea of making a change, like the solar panels and what have you, maybe looking into that, and having the kids do some project-based learning.
Yeah, one thing kids have done in a lot of places around the country, of course, is look at their school and how their school uses energy. And there are efforts to try and, you have probably a nice flat roof right up on your, well, maybe, I don't know, you're in snow country, so I don't know.
Yeah, we have a flat roof, at the school.
Well, but what, you're probably getting lake effect snow now?
Oh, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay. I had a friend in our office earlier in the 1990s, and he would go home and tell his parents that he was working on global warming, and they lived in Buffalo, and they'd say, no, we're getting more snow. And he'd say, what do I say? And we'd say to him, yeah, and where is that water coming from, the snow? Well, it's coming from the lakes. And why is it coming from the lakes? Because there's no ice on the lakes. Why is there no ice on the lakes? Because the lakes are warmer.
Right.
And if they froze over, you wouldn't be getting lake effect snow. So that's one of the things you go through. But there are these efforts to try and green up schools, because it can. School boards are paying a lot in public utilities for these buildings and stuff, and there are ways to do that. I know in the state of Connecticut, the community where my grandparents had a summer home, if enough residents put solar, and were buying solar or things like that, then the town earned a number of solar panels, and where they put them was for the school, and because that was a way of trying to help save the school system money, because they were all paying taxes to support it, and so this was a wonderful community way of doing it. So these you can usually in your utility pay it might be a penny a kilowatt hour more or something for wind power or something that is bought from somewhere, and then sometimes you earn something back. And what they were doing in Connecticut was this incentive program to get people to switch over. So there's a whole bunch of things that can be done, and going after the schools is one of them. It's a wonderful place to start. Churches do that. Other things have been doing that, because you want to find, especially if you have a nice large roof that's sort of aimed a little bit at the south, or it's flat and you can build something on. You can do a lot. And right now, in fact, this leasing system that they've come up with for the solar. It used to be that you had to buy the system, and then you might sell credits for But now you basically can lease it, and the options, the one I had before was zero money down, and you sort of pay a little bit less on your utility rates, but it goes up a little bit over time. A little bit down, for me it was been a few thousand down, and you pay a flat rate for 20 years. There's no inflation cost, just a level price. And then the other was, I think it was 17,000 down for the system I did, and no payments on my utilities for 20 years.
Wow.
So since my utilities happen to be 2,000 a year or whatever it was,
right?
So it turns out to be a pretty good return on investment, and that's what they guarantee. They guaranteed it independent of cloudy weather or anything. And so as they say, we don't like to pay off on our guarantees, so you'll probably do better. And so instead of earning sort of the 8% guaranteed, you're sort of getting like 10%.
Right.
And you go, gee,
yeah.
why not do this?
Yeah. Well, last winter my furnace went down, so I invested in a new furnace, and just my wife just last week said that our bill is cut in half, and we just have a better, more efficient furnace that runs less and uses less gas. So
yeah, that's what I did. And our air conditioners had cut our bill tremendously because they had these 2-speed air conditioners, so they don't have to. It used to be they were all on full or nothing. Now they sort of can be on half, and so they run much more efficiently.
Yeah,
keeps the house more comfortable, and everything. Yeah, it's going to save a fair amount of money as well. So.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I don't want to keep you too long. I know I said in my email that I had about a 20-minute chat, so I don't want to hog you from your vacation.
Cut it down to that or something like that.
Yeah. So okay. I will be following up with some emails with you and let you know how our project goes, and if it's okay, if I have a follow-up Skype maybe down the road, if you have some time, we'd love to hook up again.
Sure. Okay.
That's
good.
All right. Well, it was great to meet you, and enjoy the rest of your vacation.
Okay. Thanks.
All right. Thanks. Bye.